Well, welcome back. Today we're stepping into a world that really feels surprisingly familiar. It's a place that's full of ideas, opinions, philosophies, and competing with truths. A place where everybody is searching, but not everyone agrees. Does this really sound familiar? Today's episode is called Speaking Truth in a Confused World. And our text is Acts 17:16 to 34, where we find Paul the Apostle in the city of Athens, a cultural and intellectual hub of the ancient world. And what he does there gives us a powerful model for how to communicate truth in a world full of noise. Paul arrives in Athens and immediately notices something. The city is full of idols. Everywhere he looks, there are objects of worship, representations in different gods, beliefs, and philosophies, and he's deeply troubled by it. But here's what's interesting. He doesn't respond with outrage, and he doesn't launch into condemnation. Instead, he starts with conversation. He reasons in the synagogue, he engages people in the marketplace, and eventually he's brought to the he's brought to a place where idols are discussed and debated. And there Paul begins with something unexpected. He says, I see that in every way you are very religious. That's not an insult, it's not an attack, it's just an observation, a connection point. Then he mentions an altar he saw with the inscription to the unknown God. And he says, what you worship as something unknown, I am going to proclaim to you. So let's start with the first takeaway. Engaging culture thoughtfully, not aggressively. Paul could have walked into Athens and immediately criticized everything he saw. He had reason to, but instead he chose a different approach. He observed first, and he understood the culture, and then he found common ground. And that really matters because how you communicate truth is just as important as truth itself. It's that in today's world, it's easy to default to extremes. Either we stay silent to avoid conflict, or we speak loudly in ways that push people away. But Paul models something better. He shows us that how to be both truthful and thoughtful, to engage without attacking, to speak without diminishing. Because when people feel heard, they're more likely to listen. The second takeaway was this: we meet people where they are. Paul doesn't start with complex theology, he starts with something they already understand: their own altar, their own search, their own curiosity. He uses their cultural references point as a bridge. And that's powerful because real communication doesn't begin with what we want to say, it begins with what others can hear. Just think about your own conversations, whether it's a friend, co-worker, or family. People come with different backgrounds, beliefs, and experiences. So if we ignore that, we risk speaking truth in a way that never lands. But when we meet people where they are, we build connection, and connection creates openness. The third takeaway is this: that the truth communicated well can reach further. See, Paul doesn't water down the message. He still speaks clearly about God as creator, about life, purpose, and accountability, and about truth that challenges their assumptions. But he presents it in a way that is understandable and relatable. He even quotes their own poets. Why? Because he wants the message to connect. And here's what happens: some people mock him, some are curious, and some believe. Not everybody responds in the same way, and that's okay, because Success isn't measured by immediate agreement. It's measured by faithful communication. Paul's responsibility wasn't to control the outcome, it was to communicate truth in a way people could actually hear. And there's a tension here that's easy to miss. Paul is both clear and compassionate, honest and respectful, bold and thoughtful. And that balance is what makes his message effective, because truth without compassion can feel harsh, and compassion without truth can feel empty. But when the two come together, something really powerful happens. So let's bring this back to your life. We all live in our own version of Athens, a world full of voices, ideas and beliefs. And we all have opportunity to speak into that. So here's the question. How can you communicate your beliefs in a way people actually hear? Are you listening before speaking? Are you finding connection points? And are you communicating with both clarity and care? You don't need to have all the answers, but you can be intentional about how you share what you believe, because the goal isn't just to speak, it's to be understood. Well, thanks for listening today, and if this podcast resonates with you, take a moment this week to engage someone in a thoughtful conversation, not to win the argument, but to build the bridge. Because in our confused world, truth spoken well can still be heard.